Hi, everybody. So excited to be here in England, the home of the author of the book A Monster Calls, Patrick Ness.
Yes, and I love seeing Big Ben. It's even more impressive than in person. And I'm so excited to be here. My name is Kathleen Blake. I'm a teacher at school number 5.
And I am Diane Provvido, the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum, Instruction, and Research.
So Diane, I thought we would start by talking about some of our favorite quotes. There were so many in this book, but when I was reading the chapter Yew Trees, there was one quote that really stuck with me. Do you mind if I read it?
No, please do.
Okay. It's the part where Connor's speaking to his father, and his father says, "Son," his father said, leaning forward, "stories don't always have happy endings." That stopped him, because they didn't, did they? That's one thing the monster had definitely taught him. Stories were wild, wild animals, and went off in directions you couldn't expect. I love that part because I think it's true about stories and I think it's true about life. You expect things to go one way and it's not always the path that it takes. So that really spoke to me and it stuck with me.
That's interesting because the part that I chose that I found to be quite poignant was actually in the same chapter and it came right before. And this is when Connor was having a conversation with his mom and he says, "Does that mean it's too late?" Connor asked, setting the words free before he even knew what he was saying. "No, Connor," she answered him quickly. "Don't think that. It's not too late. It's never too late." "Are you sure?" She smiled again. "I believe every word I say," she said, her voice a little stronger. Connor remembered what the monster had said. Belief is half the healing. And I love that because I think it's a very powerful statement that his mother, despite everything that she was going through, had this real depth of hope. And that in and of itself was a gift to Connor, who was struggling with what he was facing as well. So I just love that. Belief is half the healing.
I love that too. So it's interesting because in the previous chapter, the yew tree had told the story about how the yew tree has healing powers. So of course, as the reader, you can't help but get excited by the idea that this monster may actually be able to heal Connor's mom. I mean, could that happen and how amazing would that be?
And how interesting is that? Here, the monster is Connor's nightmare. It's his nightmare. And when we think of the word monster and we think of monsters, it's so scary and it's so frightening. But at this point, the author is giving us a little bit of that hope that we mentioned from my favorite quote, that he might have the medicine to heal his mom. So that was pretty significant, and I think it leaves us wanting to know more. So I think that the monster might help Connor heal because the monster is symbolic of his worst nightmare. The monster is symbolic of the things that Connor just right now doesn't want to face. And I think that when you're facing something so difficult, half the battle, half of healing is just accepting what is happening.
I agree. And I think it's so brilliant the way that Patrick Ness used the monster as sort of a manifestation of what Connor's going through. And so if he can't face it himself, his mind is almost playing a trick on him so that he's forced to. He's forced to face the reality in his life. This book definitely changed me, and I don't know if it changed me as much as it helped me to remember that the people that I come in contact with every day, no matter if they're my best friend or it's a stranger on the street, they're facing something that I might not know anything about. And so when I think about Connor throughout the book and as he's in school and he's going through so much at home, it helps to remind me that there are people out there who are having personal struggles that I might not know about, and I need to understand that and be empathetic towards that.
And I have to say that I agree wholeheartedly. It really helped to bring back to the surface that reminder that people go through things and we need to be empathetic. But it also didn't necessarily change me, more so than it reminded me about courage and the human spirit. And Connor is facing the most difficult thing that we can imagine a child to face. Yet, in his own way, as we explore the book, because we're getting ready to find out what happens here, he is having to face that and ultimately will need to muster some courage, and it is about courage in the most difficult of things.
A possible alternate title for this book, I was thinking, could be Rooted in Truth, because what the monster really helps Connor to explore is that truth is very complicated, and it's not so easy. Things aren't always as black and white as they appear, and he kind of explains that through his 3 tales. So I thought maybe Rooted in Truth.
I had a really hard time with that. I would say something like Climbing the Wall. I think that's symbolic again, like the monster is symbolic, a wall is symbolic, something that you're facing that is just, you think you cannot possibly overcome or cannot go through. But yet, again, human spirit and courage hopefully will help you to climb any hurdle. And I guess we'll see what happens with Connor. I guess we'll see if this monster does that for him in one way or another.
If you haven't picked up A Monster Calls It, you have to. It's absolutely unbelievable. And if you're still in the process of reading, I can't wait for you to get to the end so we can discuss it.
And I have to say, Patrick Ness does an incredible job with writing and bringing us into the emotions of every character and what they're going through. And this idea of a monster as being symbolic of something. He is a beautiful writer. You have to read this book. If you haven't picked it up yet, go get it. A Monster Calls. It's an amazing read.